Hello and welcome to the Elephant Room podcast with me, Frank Shortle, and this week, Ian Hand. Well, always Ian Hand. This week we have a very special guest that we've spoke about before on this, and we were so happy that he decided to talk to us. It is Günter Loibl, the CEO and founder of Rebeat, and also the brains or the inventor of HD vinyl, which we've spoke about before on this, which obviously I'll let him explain it better in the actual interview, but it's basically a more modernized version of the process of creating vinyl records, just revolutionizing it, making it more 21st century, because as he mentions, it's been made the same way basically since it has been made in the last 60-70 years. Just like innovative ideas that will shake all that up and hopefully make it greener and more high def and higher quality. And I, for one, can't wait for it. But myself and Ian sat down with him, and he explained the whole process for us, where he is at the moment, and hopefully when we'll be getting it on our doorsteps. I think without further ado, we'll probably just launch into it. Ian, do you have any foreword?
Yeah, I think, look, it is absolutely such a more sustainable process, and you'll hear it as Günter explains it, and it really does modernize it, absolutely. And, the integrity of vinyl, how we love it, it's tactile, it has the dynamic range over digital. This is a very unique, new, innovative process that I think it marries the two. But anyway, look, we'll see it. We'll see it in the interview, or listen to the interview.
Exactly. So without further ado, here is Günter Loibl. Hey Günter, how are you?
Hi Frank.
Hey Günter, it's Ian here.
Hi Ian. How are you?
We're all good.
Where are you based?
We're both in Ireland.
Ireland, okay.
Yeah. I think just to give, because we're very well caught up on it, so I just want to, if you get you to just explain Rebeat and how you got around to where you are now.
The story of Rebeat is quite a very colorful one. I was always, from the beginning of my thinking, or from what I can remember when I was a child, there was always music was one very important part of my life in technology. And what I did was just combining those two and try to stay at the intersection of those two segments. So I started, it was back in 2000. Before that, I was working for musical instruments companies and all that kind of things. And 2000, I started my first own company. It was a distribution company. It was physical distribution, CDs at that time, Austria and Germany. And it was, when I started, was the first year when the CD business started to go down. So all those big parties at Meedem or at the other trade shows, I never really experienced. And but it wasn't bad luck. It was, when you look back, it was good luck, because that was also the point when MP3 really completely changed everything. And this was also the beginning of digital music distribution. And we started with that in 2004. So when the first, at this time, it was Music Load in Germany. This company doesn't exist for many years now. Was gone out of business or have been sold, I don't know. There was OD2, which was, I think, originally founded by Peter Gabriel. But it really, the digital distribution business really started when Apple came to the market with their iPods. And I was among the first who recognized or realized what kind of chance that will mean for the music business. And so we started our digital music distribution. I'm not really a marketing guy. I'm more a technology guy. So our main focus in digital distribution has always been technology, and it is still technology. So I would definitely not be very wrong when I say that from a technical standpoint, Rebeat still is one of the best distribution companies, digital distribution companies in the world. What we do is, on a daily basis, we talk with our clients and ask them if there are things that we can do better. take a look at their how they work and find out if there are possibilities we can solve with a technical solution. And when I was asking, when I was talking with music labels, a lot of music labels were telling me everything is fine with digital, but we have a huge problem with vinyl records. When we want to print or press vinyl records, there is a gap of up to 6 months until we can get the releases into our warehouse. I didn't know much about vinyl records, but I basically knew how those have been produced, and I thought by myself, there must be this technology is the same or nearly the same like it has been 40 or 50 years ago, and it's completely unimaginable that there are no ways to do it better. This idea came up in my mind as, okay, why not try it with laser, especially the stampers, because stampers right at the moment and still right now they are being, in many cases, is a lacquer foil where a sapphire stylus cuts in the groove, and then it's been electroplated, chemically copied several times, and there is at the end of this process you get a nickel stamper, and with this nickel stamper you can press between 500 and 1500 copies, and then you have to exchange it because of the wear and take a new one. And I thought by myself, why not try this with laser and don't forget about nickel, because nickel is chemically and a very problematical metal. It's also there. Also, a lot of toxic chemicals are used in the chemical copying process, and I wanted to produce a cleaner, more sustainable, and from the sound even much better process. And that's when I thought laser and ceramic would be the right materials. But I'm not a laser engineer or laser scientist, and so I was trying to find out who is the best guy in Austria, who knows I would say much more than me, and who knows everything about that. And that was when I met the second inventor of HD vinyl, because you cannot say it's only me. You can say I'm the father, and I met Volker Schmidt, and Volker Schmidt, you can say, is the mother of HD vinyl. He was the scientist, and he started investigating if this is technically possible, because at this moment it was just an idea. And after half a year of basic research, he came up with a result and said it might be tricky, and we will have some quite huge obstacles to solve, but he thinks it might be possible to do it exactly that way. And when we knew that we can do it, there was the next big obstacle. We knew that we would need a lot of money to make this become reality. And I was talking with people I knew who had a lot of money. The funny thing was they agreed on helping us, but when it came to the point that we said, okay, now let's make a contract, they said, maybe the risk is a little bit too high for us. We'll leave it. So it took almost 2 years to find someone who is willing to help us, or an investor who helps us to make that possible. The funny thing is, I was talking really with venture capital funds in New York, in Singapore, all around the world. And at the end of the day, it turned out that there is a big gardener which lives 500 meters away from me. And this was the guy who said, okay, I will give you the money. Let's start and do it. So I was walking around the world and talking with a lot of people around the world, but the solution was 500 meters away from me. And then we, once we had the money, we purchased the laser machine, we purchased all the equipment we needed, and we started. And at the beginning, the start was, I would not say better than expected, because there was still obstacle, but it was quite in plan. So very soon we had a way to, I don't know if this is the correct English word, modelize the groove with the laser machine. So the shape of the groove was quite early, very, very good, better than the shape you can get from an analog cutting lathe. When those big steps, and what we thought was big steps, were done, we found out that the devil was lying in the detail. It turned out, so we were doing this now, we started, I think, 3 years ago with the development. And our original plan was that we already should be on the market for, I think, 18 months. It still will take, I would say, definitely another 8 to 12 months to bring it to the market. And the reason for that is quite simple, or it's not simple, it's really complicated, but simple to explain. It's because the human ear is so sensible, much more sensible than any other sense we have. So it's the eye, the touch sense, your taste. Nothing of these are so sensible than your ears. And that means that when you write a groove, or that's the phenomenon we didn't expect, that we have unexplainable noises in the groove. So we started to write what we call a zero groove, an unmodulated groove. So that means there should be nothing, no signal in it. Because when you have no signal in the zero groove, then you can be sure that you have no unwanted noise in the music later on. And it started with some kind of very unexpected noise. It was some kind of wee 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 wee, some repeating crazy sound, and it took us 3 months to find out that this was the one part of the equipment, and this part we used. It was the scanner. The scanner is the part where the laser goes in and mirrors move the laser beam into several directions. And we had the best scanner in the world from the best scanner company. And even those guys couldn't explain what's going on until we found out that the manufacturer itself didn't know that. So when you work with that scanner with very low speed, then you get that kind of noise. When you accelerate the speed into a specific window, everything is fine. And when you exceed that window, suddenly another noise is coming up. So what I wanted to say with that is there is really a very, very small window. All the components you have to work in their optimal window, and then you get quite a noise-free groove. And it's easier to explain than to really solve that problem, because that means that you have changes on the outside, or that you have different parameters on the outside of the record than compared to it on the inner side. So this is really a very, very complicated thing we are working on. We are making progression. I'm not unsatisfied with the progression we are doing, but it has slowed us down completely, because you have thousands of different parameters, and you from all these parameters you have the ideal parameter set, and only this parameter set is working, and we're looking now for that. But when you compare the first grooves we had and the grooves we have right now, there is it was a huge step forward. But to really make it perfect, there will be, I would say, at least another 6 months necessary to find it.
So it's only actually been 3 years since you started developing everything, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like even trying to get the funding and explaining the idea to people and where you've gotten in 3 years. Like to begin with, I think this whole thing is just the best idea ever. Like,
Thank you.
The American artist Father John Misty has a song that starts off with "Try not to think about the completely unnatural amount of oil that'll make a record," and that's something I've always thought about. That the more that vinyl starts to sell, the harder it is on the environment.
Yeah, the environment is. It was right from the beginning. It was part of the idea. It was definitely, of course, it was to improve the audio quality and to improve the play or to extend the playtime. But it definitely also was to remove all the toxic chemicals, because more and more countries, it gets more and more difficult to get licenses to install that galvanic or that chemical process. And when you take a look at this chemical process, there is a lot of really toxic chemicals involved, which is not healthy for the people working there, which is even more critical when you have to put it to the waste and all these kind of things. And the good thing is that our system, when it really works, can be done 100% with solar electricity. It can also, all the stampers can be 100% recycled. So at the end of the day, there is no environmental footprint, at least on the stamper side. Regarding the vinyl record itself, I have to say that yes, there is an environmental footprint of that record, but when you really take a close look to it, you will see that this footprint you might think that it is big, but when you really take a look at it, you can see that it is very, very small, because PVC might be a material that is really a problem when it comes to waste, because it doesn't disappear. It lasts forever. But this is exactly what we want with the record, with the vinyl record. We want it to last forever. We want our grandchildren to listen to the music their grandparents were listening to. And also, it's a question of cultural heritage. We will be able, with the vinyl record, we are easily able to, because it will survive several hundred years without fading away. We can make the music and the cultural heritage accessible to all our children, grandchildren, and people in 200, 300, 400, 500 years. That is something you cannot say from the CD.
Yeah.
And also, when you take a look at, when you compare it, there's a lot of people who compare vinyl records with music streaming. And when you compare that, you will also see that the energy footprint of vinyl isn't that big, because you play that record in your whole life. You play it, let's say, 100 times, 200 times, depends on how much you like that music. And it doesn't produce any additional, or it doesn't use any additional energy when you play it back. But when you stream your song 200, 300 times, every time you have to feed the servers, you have to feed all the lines and your mobile phone, everything. And in that relation, suddenly it appears that vinyl records are, I would not say that they are green, because they are black. No, I'm joking. But when you really compare it to existing other or to music streaming, it's not so bad. It's much better than expected.
Yeah, I think what you said there about it hasn't upgraded, like it's been made the very same way. Vinyls have been manufactured the same way for 60, 70 years. And I think some of the reasons why it hasn't advanced is because it's being a dying format for a while, and then it became niche. And a lot of the people who liked it being niche loved the fully analog tradition of it. So I think it's great how you've come up with a way of preserving quite a niche thing that is now becoming more mainstream, and it can't actually be very niche anymore because it'll be produced so often. And as you said, it's for distribution companies like yourselves, it takes so long for the actual process to happen. Have you had many people kind of go against you with the traditionalists of this whole fully analog process?
You can imagine that there are a lot of people that are not really happy about HD vinyl, because just take the electroplating companies. If HD vinyl becomes a standard, they have no business anymore. Also, there was also a lot of questioning coming from the mastering engineers. But I have to say this was a very interesting point, because the mastering engineers, they were completely separated in two parts. One half was completely trying to get that genie back into the bottle, and the other ones were really appreciating it, because they were saying, okay, I'm not one of the lucky guys who owns a cutting lathe, because they are very expensive. I still want to cut vinyl records, because I'm the mastering engineer. I'm responsible for the entire sound, and I have no control about the sound when I give it away to an analog, to a cutting engineer. And the HD vinyl gives me back the control about the sound. And it also will a little bit, do you say, democratize this business, because we have digitalized the cutting lathe with the Perfect Groove software. So that means mastering engineers who have never done vinyl cuttings before suddenly are able to get into this business and stay in control of their sound. So it was, and also pressing plants. It was quite funny, because it was the same way there. A lot of pressing plants were saying, "Please go away with your HD idea," but there were also a lot of pressing plants. I would say even the majority were happy about that, because, of course, they might lose that business of electroplating when it's integrated in their company. But on the other hand, all of them working with electroplating know that they have a problem getting the licenses year after year. And they all also know, once there is a new technology on the way that doesn't use these toxic chemicals, the law might change. And so it's inevitable. And even the bigger ones, like GC, for example, in Czech Republic, they were really trying to help us because they knew that there will be a change, and sometimes it's better to embrace it than to push it away.
Would it be finally like kind of once it's up and running for a pressing plant, wouldn't it mean that they can actually nearly like double their output?
No, I would not say that because the pressing cycle itself will remain quite similar. So it will take 30 to 40 seconds, depending on what kind of material and machine you use. I think that will be the same. The installing process of the stamper might be a little faster with HD vinyl because we need vacuum attachments, and you don't have to remove rings and bend it over the rim and all these kind of things. But on the other hand, you need someone who really takes care because these ceramic stampers, they very easily can break. So you need to handle them with very, very special care. I think at the end of the day, it will make not such a big difference for the pressing plant. It might help because at the beginning, there will not be a lot of pressing plants working with HD vinyl because of our production capacity. We will definitely not be able to fulfill the demand at the beginning. So there will be just a very few pressing plants, and those few I can think will make quite more money than before.
Would it actually be cheaper for, say, like an independent band who you probably deal with the distribution company? It would, like, say, an independent band who wants to get 1,000 copies of their new LP made. Will it affect basically how much they're charged for those 1,000?
Unfortunately, I think that at the beginning, HD vinyl will be a little bit more expensive in the production because it's always the same. When a new media comes to the market at the beginning, it's always more expensive because when we start the production with a stamper, we will have limited capacity. And it's the law of economics that when the capacity is low, the prices are going up. So for smaller bands at the beginning, I think it will be more expensive, and it will be even difficult to get those HD vinyls. But it's just a question of time when the entire process accelerates. It will get cheaper. We'll very soon have more pressing plants being able to offer HD vinyl, and when that comes, the price will also go down. I can easily imagine. Yeah. I also think that consumers might be willing to pay a little more for the enhanced quality. I think for the consumer, it will be some kind of the benefit and the higher costs will equalize each other because they will get a better product. Of course, they will have to pay a little bit more. For the music labels, I think it will also be some kind of that. It's difficult to predict because we can only we know how much we will sell the stampers to the pressing plants, but we have no influence on the margins of the distributor, on the margins of the music label, on the margin of the retailer. So it's difficult to predict, but I hope that the price range will be just a little bit higher than traditional vinyl.
Hey, Günter. I think it's absolutely fantastic idea, and I'm completely on board with the production environmentally friendly, absolutely. But just when you're on about the cutting of the groove, and that this is an optimized groove essentially compared to the traditional lathe cutting, just so basically from the 60s onwards, you've had constant, I suppose, a strive for the industry, the likes of Audio Technica, Orphan, all them, to try and mimic as best as possible the actual lathe cutting head, in terms of the stylus. So you first start with the conical, then you start with the elliptical, then the shibata, the nude, all that, to try and improve and try and get into those grooves. I'm just wondering, with this new HD vinyl process, are you improving the profile of the groove? And if so, or if not, will you still have to have quite a good high-end vinyl player, or turntable to overcome lower grade quality with stylus, or does this eliminate it essentially?
From what I can say right now is that we have some test cuts done already and played them back on different turntables, different styluses, or different needles. And what we can say is that we didn't find any turntable that was not able to play back HD vinyl. This is quite a difficult topic because technically we can do much more than the analog cutting lathe could have done or is able to do at the moment. So one example, you mentioned the different shapes of the needle. there is what we do, or what we can do, or what we will do, is the shape of the groove with the angle and the flanks will completely be the same from the inner side to the, or from the outside to the inner side, will completely be the same. So technically possible would be to construct the shape of the needle that really fits 100% into that groove. Of course, 100% will never fit, because when the needle is following the groove, it goes up and down. But technically, it would be possible to create a shape that really fits 100% into that groove. And with that 100%, you can do, theoretically, you could do a little more than you can do right now, because now you have the problem that each and every cutting lathe, also depending on the operating hours of the stylus, will produce different kind of shapes of the groove, and this is not a problem on our side. So our groove is always the same, and we will not reinvent that. So there is a norm how this groove has to look in the ideal case, and that's exactly what we are producing. So we're not changing the groove. We're just taking care that this perfect shape is from the inner side from the outside to the inside is always the same. It will be very interesting to see what cartridge manufacturers are gonna do with that. I could easily imagine we have. Maybe you know that we also started 2 years ago. We started an association in the vinyl business we call the Vinyl Alliance, where all the record labels, Universal, Sony, Warner, are members. And there are also, of course, so what we try is to have all the stakeholders of the vinyl business on one table to be able to optimize a lot of things that have not been done in the past. And when you take a look back, you had the RIAA or the IFPI, which was a label association, but you didn't have the turntable manufacturers there, you didn't have the cartridge manufacturers there, you didn't have the mastering engineers there. So we have them all on the table, and we already had internal discussions, and especially from Audio Technica and from Orthophone, those both are members at the Vinyl Alliance. I could easily imagine that that once we have done our work and we can provide them test records, I could easily imagine that they will produce dedicated HD vinyl cartridges to enhance the quality, the audio quality.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really good to hear. Because I was always wondering about that. Are you not necessarily reinventing the groove, but you're just kind of maintaining, obviously, the integrity of the groove, the structural integrity. But just one last thing, I suppose, for me, with in terms of the technical aspect, you're on about, obviously, the human ear, and our sense to hear. It's so sensitive to frequencies. Now, obviously, the human frequency spectrum that we can hear is between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz, give or take, and that reduces obviously when you get older. But I was just wondering, with the HD vinyl process, will you be focusing on that kind of audible spectrum, or will you go beyond, into, deeper or more higher frequencies? Or basically, is not necessarily is it worth going into those higher frequencies, because, will we be able to hear it? But, will you be more or less perfecting what we can hear as humans, or will you be going a bit more ahead of that?
Well, this is a difficult discussion, because when you talk with audio engineers, you also have two different opinions. You have the one that say the human ear goes from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, but you have also a lot of engineers telling you that this isn't true, that you don't maybe not hear it consciously, but there are some other effects that may take place. Technically, technically, what we can do is, at the moment, it's because this is a question of the resolution, and we can do up to 100 kilohertz on the outer side. Maximum frequency goes down in the inner side to 40 kilohertz. This is I think it's 3 times or 4 times better than the traditional vinyl record, except you do half speed record, mastering, all these kind of things that might go into higher frequencies. But with a normal traditional process, you end up, I think, 12 kilohertz on the inner side, and I think maybe 18 to 20 kilohertz on the outer side. The biggest problem with high frequencies on a traditional cutting lathe is that the stylus overheats. So that's the reason why technically you need to reduce those high frequency, because the stylus is not able to reproduce it. It will just burn up. and the laser doesn't have that problem. So at the moment, we can do that up to 100 kilohertz. Later on, when we increase the resolution, there will be even higher frequencies. I don't know if this is necessary. I'm very curious about the feedback from the audiophiles regarding when on that frequency response when they listen to HD vinyl. Let's see. I have really no prediction. Technically, we can do this. So if the mastering engineer provides us material with up to 100 kilohertz, we will be very happy to put that into the groove. If you have, and there is also I was quite often asked if there are cartridges that can reproduce that frequencies. And I was confirmed by Leif Johansson, the technical director of Autophone, that he already has cartridges that go up to 80 kilohertz without any problem. So technically, it should be possible. I don't know. I would say for myself, I cannot hear it, but don't tell the other ones, please.
I suppose just one very last thing for me. Sorry, it just dawned on me as we were speaking there. Obviously, you see these products these days that are kind of purporting to be HD records. Now, obviously, not nowhere near as technical as what you're doing. But you have your 200-gram vinyl. It's at 45 RPM as opposed to 33 1/3, which obviously with revolutions it does dictate that it is higher. Will your HD vinyl venture, will you be looking at just 45 RPM, or will you do the 33 1/3, or?
We have the freedom to do everything. We could also do 21.6 RPM if somebody is asking us for that. We can, don't laugh at that. We get some very funny requests. So there was a request from a DJ equipment company, and they wanted to have loop LPs. So that means that they have endless grooves, and endless grooves you cannot cut with a traditional cutting lathe. So you can expect that there will be some very, very funny, different, I would not say formats, I would say variants of HD vinyl. But at the end of the day, I would say that the consumer is deciding what he wants to have. And I would say that most of the consumer would prefer the existing revolutions. But it can easily be possible because of extending the playing time. That's something we need to figure out when we can start work with modulated grooves. It could also be possible that we make 45 LPs that have up to 20 minutes per side, and they would sound much better than 33. So if there is an audience, if there is a market for that, we can do it.
I think myself and Frank would definitely get on board with those.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask, if you can make like records with longer, like to 30 minutes per side and stuff like that. You'll actually change how people will approach making their albums again to actually go with the format, just extended records and stuff like that as well.
To be honest, the problem is you have to make a decision when you're a mastering engineer. Do you go for dynamics? If you have a very big difference between very loud signal and very low signal, then we will not be able to squeeze out so much playing time. If you have non-dynamic material, it's much easier. And I think that for some specific cases, I would not be surprised to have up to 30 minutes per side without losing quality. But it really depends on the material, different to predict. That's the reason why we have the Perfect Groove software, because as a mastering engineer, when you make that decision, you can import it into the Perfect Groove software, and this will completely emulate the entire system. So it will immediately tell you if you what the maximum playing time would be.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about the Perfect Groove software. That's available now.
It is available now, but not for HD vinyl because it's not on the market. When we developed the software, it was originally dedicated to do the HD vinyl mastering. And when we showed it to mastering engineers, to cutting engineers, they suddenly were coming up with big eyes and asking us, I want to have exactly that software for my analog cutting lathe, because I can now emulate the entire process, and it doesn't necessarily need to have miscuts and throw away very expensive lacquers. So it's available at the moment for analog cutters. I think we've sold several hundreds. It was not that big number, but it was a little bit more than we expected. I didn't think that we will sell that much.
It visually looks great. Like it's like looking at the videos, it makes everything so simple.
Well, I have to mention that two people I have to mention, because it's not my credit with that software. There are two people that were really very, very heavily involved in that. There was one guy was Andreas Wagner. He's our software engineer from Munich. He is the brain behind that. And we also had very, 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 very much help from Scott Hull. He's a legend in mastering from Master Disc Studios in New York. He really helped us a lot to develop that.
It's a brilliant idea, I think. Once again, once you couple it with HD, it's going to be amazing.
Thank you.
You touched on it there at the beginning, where you currently are and where you hope to be. If we can leave it on that, maybe even just like where you foresee it or hope to foresee it and where you are at the moment.
At the moment, as I said, we are working on optimizing the groove and the entire system, because the parameter window in which HD vinyl stamper production really works is a very, very small window, and that's what we are now trying to do. So we are optimizing and moving and switching parameters, and there are a lot of those parameters. Then we burn burn we burn it. We burn that test record. Then we have to analyze it to find the differences between the ones before. Then switch the next parameter, do the same thing, and try to find out, and slowly but surely get into this is what we need at first to even think about producing those stampers, is that we have that perfect zero groove. So it must be a groove that is really producing zero noise. And then when we have that, we will start with modulated grooves and make some kind of the same comparisons. Because the problem we have is, it's not a problem, it's we promised that HD vinyl will be much better than traditional vinyl. And you can be sure that each and every audio engineer will take his first HD vinyl and run it through his analyzing equipment. And you can definitely be sure that if there is just the slightest thing that does not match or not fit, we will have huge discussions. And that's why we decided to really not go to the market with a half-ready product. It must be, I would say, match the expectations. And that's why it takes a little bit longer now.
Yeah, it's a massive case of trial and error, really.
It is. You can ask our development team. They
know better than anybody.
They sometimes need a lot of positive motivation, because it's really and not every direction you try to develop is the right direction. So sometimes you develop in a direction, then you find out after 2 weeks that that you won't get a result in that when you move on in that direction. So you have to go back and move and try the other direction. It is what it is. When you walk on a trail nobody has walked before, you find all the things that you have expected and even more things that you have never expected. That's what we have to deal with now.
Yeah, it's never straightforward.
No.
I think it's an absolutely brilliant concept. I'm delighted to see it marching on, Günter, and I wish you every success with it. And myself and Frank, we are self-proclaimed audiophiles and general music lovers. So, and we love vinyl. So if you ever need anyone to test the product for you, send it over.
Yeah, what we can do is once we have the first prototype ready, or let's say the prototype that matches our expectations, we can do another podcast, and maybe not talking so much about the theory of HD vinyl, but maybe even let your audience listen to it. Okay, I know that this is digitalized and it's over the internet, but I think it will show you that there are possibilities, and let's do that next time.
Absolutely.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I've loved following it so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes next and see the final product, as you just said there. Definitely have you on again to see the progress.
Yeah, you can be sure that there is no one more curious and more waiting than we at Rebeat, because everyone is putting his whole energy, his heart into this project. So it will not, the reward will not be money. Money will come anyway. The reward for our entire team definitely will be when we have the first prototype that really has a satisfying result. And this will be, I tell you, at this day, I'm not going to pick up the phone, because we will have ordered a lot of beer, and you will find us in the laboratory fully drunken and making party, because this was really a hell of a ride.
We'll get you on when you're hungover and finish celebrating.
I will not send you the photos from the party there.
Don't worry, it's audio only, Günter.
Yeah.
Okay, then I maybe will send you the photos and you try to explain it to the audience. It might be fun.
Amazing. Cool.
Okay, Frank.
Yeah.
Okay, Ian. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Günter. Thank you.
Take care.
Günter.
Thank you.
See you next time.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
See
evening.
you.
Bye-bye.
The Elephant Room recommends.
And we're back. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. Did you enjoy that, Ian?
Absolutely. I was looking forward to it, the whole day, to sit down with Günter, and I just think his answers were fantastic, and I think I can rest assured, Frank.
Yeah, I think any questions you had about analog, digital, and stuff like that were fairly well answered. It is a marriage of the two. It is it's innovating an old process that needs to be innovated, basically. But
Yeah.
he basically answered all the questions I had about it, and I'm genuinely just looking forward to the day that I can actually sit down and listen to a HD vinyl.
Absolutely. Can't wait for our samples to come in the post, Frank,
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the day that Günter and his team can just go and drink beer in their lab together. So we'll have a few in honor. But also, if you're interested in Günter and Rebeat and HD Vinyl, check out their website, check out their YouTube channel where they put up cool videos of like their process as it's evolving. Obviously, their Instagram page then as well. They're constantly updating and showing their progress. So yeah, just check them out online. I think we're going to do some room recommends just to finish off this episode. It's kind of action-packed episode, so we'll do something familiar to our usual format, which is some Elephant Room recommends. I am just going to do a very quick, simple one that I actually mentioned in the interview. It's the Father John Misty song that I mentioned. Just for that quote alone. The song is called Now I'm Learning to Love the War. Kind of about all the contradictions of modern life and art and feeling guilty about the lives we live doing global warming and stuff like that. And it's really good lyrics by Father John Misty, which he's so good at being self-aware and witty and tongue-in-cheek and taking the piss out of humanity and himself all in one fell swoop. And yeah, the first line of it, which I kind of got a bit wrong during the interview, was try not to think so much about the truly staggering amount of oil that it takes to make a record. Which when you're listening to that on record, because I have that album on record, yeah, it makes you feel like a piece of shit for just listening to something. Which makes me hope that HD Vinyl will come out soon. I can just get out of that guilt-free. But yeah, that's my very quick one. Ian, what have you got for us?
Well, the title of this, a single, this is a single I'm going to recommend, so not an album this time, but there will be a forthcoming album from this band. But just a word on the title before I say it. It's very interesting when Günter was on about kind of getting that nearly like a control groove, where you had absolutely no noise or whatever, or signal, just completely clean signal. Well, the title of this track is Signal from the Noise. Oh, God, terrible. But anyway, the band is the absolutely... Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? Isn't that terrible?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Oh, and I apologize to the fantastic band Bad Bad Not Good if they ever hear this. That terrible pun on their excellent single. But anyway, yeah, so Bad Bad Not Good, that's their latest offering. I hope I don't have to introduce them too much. I'm sure some people know them already. They're Canadian instrumental, electronic jazz fusion. They've done a lot of collaborations as well in the hip hop realm. They're absolutely phenomenal. I went to see them in Dublin actually a few years ago. They were excellent. But their latest offering, anyway, Signal from the Noise, unbelievable track. Starts off with a fantastic kind of synth intro and goes into a real nice jazz fusion kind of body on the track then, and a lovely outro then. Really good. And it's actually from their upcoming album, Talk Memory, which will be released in October. And also, while we're on the topic of everything vinyl, and we love vinyl, it has a really nice physical only track on the upcoming album. So there's going to be a nice gem in there that will not be available on their Spotify account. So I really like that.
Yeah, I love when bands do that. When's that? Is it already out or is it coming out?
So the single "Signal from the Noise" is it's been out the last couple of weeks. It was released in July, but the upcoming album, "Talk Memory," that is coming out on, I think it's the first week in October.
Cool. I think we'll leave this episode here. I really, really enjoyed this because it was nice to have such a strong follow-up to something we'd discussed before, and to actually something we talked about and found so interesting, to have the actual brains behind the operation come in and tell us exactly what's what.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was just a pleasure, a real pleasure. And from two self-professed or self-confessed maybe audiophiles, I think the two of us enjoyed it, and I think we can certainly get behind HD vinyl.
I think we're good to leave it there until next week, when we'll be back with hopefully more guests and just more music nerding out.
Absolutely.
Okay, see you guys next time.